certified emergency medicine physician, Dr. Owais Durrani. Doctor, thanks so much for the time. The statement is a little bit contradictory for most of us people who don't have a medical background. They're talking about the diagnosis with a Gleason score of 9. They're saying that it has metastasized to the bone, calling it aggressive. But then they're also saying because it's hormone responsive, it's somewhat treatable. Can you make it simple for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Gleason score is a way of grading prostate cancer. So essentially, if there's suspicion of having prostate cancer, what they will do is get a biopsy and take a look at it under a microscope. The score goes from 1 to 5, and they take 2 samples of that biopsy and add the scores together. And so 1 basically resembles tissue that is very similar to native normal prostate tissue, and 5 is different tissue, not great tissue that resembles aggressive cancer. And so you get, for example, 3 and a 4, you add those together, you get 7. And so in this case, obviously with a number of 9, that is fairly high because the highest you can get is 10. And so that tells us that it is a tissue that is changed, that is very aggressive. And obviously in this case, we know that it is metastasized, which means that the cancer has moved from its native area of the prostate to the bones or other parts of the body.
Okay, but again.
All right, so yeah, this is, I mean, it's, thoughts and prayers. Regardless how I feel about Joe Biden and how he ran the country, again, thoughts and prayers for him because no one wants to deal with anything like that. And he's lived a very full life. I just have like some different opinions about this. And it's unfortunate that we're finding out now because when you say something's been, metastasized and it's made it to the bone, that sounds like it's been going on for quite some time. And the president has some of the best medical care and attention, and I believe he got some attention, or he had a checkup back in 2 years ago. To what level we don't know, but I wouldn't expect them to say like he has cancer at that time. But in my opinion, Joe Biden, if it was 2 years ago, I'm just saying 2 years ago, maybe it's been there longer. Everyone thought it was okay to still put him out there for the upcoming presidency. Like no one thought that was a bad idea. Like those are the questions I got. And I got more questions than that, but I'm gonna let you cook on it.
Yeah, I'll hold my question till we play the next clip. But I will say this because I had to look into the Gleason score, into the grade he was given, which was a grade 5.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily equate to him having it for a long time, but that is a possibility. What it means is it's growing a lot faster than cancer typically tends to grow. And we know that it's already reached the bone. They're saying that they're going to do some hormone treatments. They think it'll be effective to a degree. They don't know how effective yet. And again, this should not be a political issue. We're going to put the politics to the side. You guys know I stopped being a DM in 2010. I'm just sitting here independently. But however, I am a human. And I completely realize that this is terrible news for him. It's terrible news for his family. Hopefully it's terrible news to everyone involved in politics because he's been a politician for a long time. And I know he's made some connections along the way. So again, like TR said, man, I'm praying for him and his family. I really am. This is terrible news.
Yeah, it was good, JD Vance's.
Of Joe Biden, sir, do you have any thoughts on his diagnosis?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play. And we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job.
Speaking of Joe Biden.
Wow. Yeah.
Is that fair or foul, TR?
That was in bounds. That was 100% in bounds because he acknowledged, Joe Biden's condition, but it brings up a good question that if Joe Biden, like, there's three things: the people around him, they all need to be fired. Matter of fact, they need their licenses revoked because that tells me you guys were not paying attention, unless there was something else, unless you knew about it and you decided to keep it to yourselves. Like when Robert Hur came out there and had the Hur report that basically said that Biden was not cognitively there. And everyone, just the Democrats for the most part, just said, hey, don't listen to this guy's a Republican operative. He doesn't know Joe Biden like we know Joe Biden. He had everyone come out here and say, he's fit as a fiddle. And we talked to him the other day. We talked to him on the phone every week. And now those same people are coming out here saying like, yeah, we just didn't know. And there may have been something that was off a little bit, but we just can put our finger on it. Like, you got to start asking these questions, or I think it's fair to ask these questions though, because the Democrats, what they want to do is sweep it down the rug. Because prior to this cancer coming out, they were going through. I mean, we have a bunch of books that have just come out that said Joe Biden, or talk about his, his cognitive thinking and how Joe Biden really was behind the scenes. They want to sweep this under the rug though, because Joe Biden is fighting for his legacy. So I'm not saying he doesn't have cancer. It's just kind of convenient that it came out during this time. And now no one wants to have the conversation about Joe Biden, about how he, pretty much fumbled the Democrats' plan to get back in the office though, because he was only supposed to run for one term. And then he decided to run for another term. And then he got in the way of Kamala. So Democrats got to start having, for Republicans or conservatives or people that didn't vote for Joe Biden, you already knew this. This is like, you're like, duh. Like, this is like saying water is wet. Like, we knew there were some problems with Joe Biden. We knew he wasn't there mentally. But as far as like the cancer, I mean, that's just unfortunate. And it doesn't sound like, they said there's a 30% chance that he could survive past the treatment though. But at his old age, I just don't know what they were going to do had he won the presidency. What were they going to do? Like, was this their plan to allow Kamala to take over? I mean, if you knew about 2 years ago, then why didn't you just let her run? Why didn't you just say like, hey, she's going to run, at the beginning of the, election cycle? This tells me that Kamala wasn't a strong enough candidate for them to take it over though, because I don't believe that they found out just now. I believe they've known this for a while. And I just think they didn't want, that's all. That sounds bad, but maybe Kamala really wasn't a good candidate. And it didn't give them enough time to figure out to get a backup plan though for Kamala, because, to me, it sounds like that would be the obvious pick. But they just said, hey, a Joe Biden with cancer is a better option than Kamala Harris though. So if I was on the Kamala side, I would be asking like, why didn't you guys get out of the way? And then as a Democrat or even a liberal, I'd be asking, if you guys knew about this, why didn't you guys say anything? We shouldn't be finding out from, conservatives that they were right along. They were right this entire time. That's the questions that I have. And I think JD is spot on. Like, I don't think anybody was making any jokes. I think everybody's just asking like, this is a real conversation, real, like, politicians. This needs to be a real conversation that we need to have and discuss.
Yeah. And to the people who are listening who think that this was foul, I would like to know why you think it's foul and when is the appropriate time to bring this up. Because even JD Vance started off by saying, I don't know when is the appropriate time to ask this. But this is a job where essentially your HIPAA protections are out the window, because people are going to want to know how healthy you are and what your cognitive abilities are, right? And
Right.
I think Joe Biden showed a lot of evidence that he was declining physically and mentally. I do think JD Vance, who I actually like him better, I think he's the future of the Republican Party. I do think he said one thing that was kind of disingenuous, though. He mentioned that, I'm not saying he was a bad president because of his policies and because of some of the things he did. Actually, multiple times during the debate, he did say that. He said he had some trash policies and they were causing a lot of problems at this country.
I agree. They shouldn't try to be nice, but I think just because of the moment.
Yeah. He might have been trying to smooth it up just given the circumstances, but he did show a little bit of a human side here. He did ask a valid question. I don't know when is the appropriate time to ask something like this. It's certainly not if, if something happens to him, God forbid, and he doesn't beat this, then there's never the right time to ask this. So it's probably better to just ask now. But at least he let it off with like, hey, my heart is with him. I'm trying to be human about this. So I kind of respect it. It's a fair question to ask for somebody that's running the country and the highest, it's a law enforcement officer in the country.
Yeah, I think we're if it wasn't abundantly clear that the Democrats have been lying and covering up Biden's missteps, then it should be pretty clear now. But I know a lot of people are going to look past this. And I don't know why they're going to look past it, though, because you should be asking the question, like, why are we finding out now? And if they knew about this earlier, why didn't they do something about it? Why didn't they put Kamala, in the driver's seat? So there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, but they'll never get answered. We had another clip where Megyn Kelly confronts Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper just released a new book. He was a former CNN correspondent or reporter or whatever. And he released a book discussing some of the missteps with Biden. And Megyn Kelly actually does a masterful job of, pretty much holding or making Jake accountable to the words that he said on CNN, because everyone's saying like, hey, this is true, this is what's going on, and he just has a bunch of pushback on it. And it's mind-blowing to me that people refuse to hold or be have the Democrats have an honest conversation with about the Democrats, though, because clearly they were lying about Joe Biden's condition. And just like JD said, this guy got the new codes. Like, people said, we're worried about Trump getting the new codes. You should have been worried about Biden. And if Biden was really compromised, who was running the country? Was it the shadow government? Was it Obama? Was it Jill? Like, we're living in the United States where the president may not be running the country. Well, at least with Joe Biden, we're questioning, was Joe Biden running the country? Like, that's just wild to me that, we didn't have this conversation with anybody else, but with Biden, yeah, everybody's like, oh, now I got to lean more towards it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Man, I'll wait until you run the clip before I say my next point.
Yeah, it's and it's a very short clip too, gang. So let me get this. All right.
Throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seem to be running cover for the president.
I don't think
interested.
That's true.
Well, I mean, we'll start with the Laura Trump issue that you referred. Here it is. This happened in 2020.
Joe Biden, as we all know, has worked to overcome a stutter. How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You are
to watch somebody on stage search for
that's so
questions.
amazing.
You're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you
stuttering.
were mocking his stutter.
Yeah,
I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no
Jake.
standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel
Laura
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure it was from a place of concern. We all believe that. Laura Trump, thank you so much.
Do you want to apologize to Laura Trump now?
I've already apologized to her. I called her months ago.
And what did she say?
I mean, I don't want to disclose the contents of a private conversation, but I thought the conversation went well. And she said, she has said this publicly, so I feel fine of sharing it. She said that she would never mock anybody's stutter. But I mean, after we did the research for this book and I realized how bad his acuity issues were, I called Laura Trump and I said, you were right.
She was totally right. That's the thing, because when I watched that clip, and I'm
All right. So Jake Tapper, even though like Megyn Kelly, that was a great question. I wish she had follow up with, well, why didn't you publicly say anything about it? Because you publicly shamed her or tried to embarrass her on CNN. And so I would have loved for that follow up, but she did a great job, like just holding his feet to the fire. like Jake Tapper and some other folks, this is what they've been doing. They've been telling everyone these are cheap fakes. These are, or right wing conspiracy theories, and they've all come to be true. And so I'm glad Megyn Kelly came out here. To some degree, Jake Tapper, I want to give him a little bit of credit of telling the truth, but he's trying to sell a book at the end of the day. So this has nothing to do with him trying to clear his conscience or trying to, like do what's right. This guy is trying to make a buck off of what was going on behind the scenes, and he just straight up lied about it. And then Lara Trump, she tried to say something about it. He tried to gaslight her and try to, make her seem like she's going after people with a stutter. I'm sure the people from the stuttering organization, whoever they are, I'm sure they had something to say about it. Like, this is what Democrats do. They try to get people riled up. They try to get these organizations get riled up and say like, hey, they're attacking us, and this person's ableist or some type of racist, blah blah blah. And that's really not the case. She was trying to have a genuine conversation there, and he tried to expose her like she's this, like I said, some type of ableist. So that's my thing with the Democrats. This is why I can never go back to the Democratic Party, because they'll eat their own, and then they continue to lie and they try to gaslight. So this is just another example of that.
Yeah, I won't say I'll never go back, but y'all got a lot of stuff y'all need to clean up, particularly who the future of your party is, because that seems to be determined right now, where it should have been decided a long time. Going back to Jake Tapper, though, this is a L for him. This is yet another L for somebody who's associated with CNN, who at one point I would have argued was the most unbiased news network out there, but it's clear it's dead if they lean left these days. Jake, your journalistic integrity, you just compromised the dude. First of all, if you wrong somebody publicly, the apology needs to be publicly. That's just a basic rule that you might want to live by. That's number one. Number two, you went to bat for Joe Biden, his mental and physical capabilities multiple times. This wasn't the only time. I watched a lot of CNN. He went to bat for Joe Biden constantly. And then he turns around and writes this book saying, it was a little bit tough out there. And the book will sell. But again, like you said, TR, this is all for selling of a book. Now I would like to hear you criticize the party that it sounds like you're with, because they did this. Everybody saw that mentally he was declining a little bit. But it seems like everybody knew that except for the Dems. Everybody knew that except for the Dems. The independents knew it. The Republicans knew it. People on the global scale knew it. But the Dems was like, no, we're sticking by Joe. He's passed all his health assessments. Everything is good. And now we're seeing that it's not. It's going to be really interesting to see how he progresses over the next couple of years. We're rooting for the best. But ultimately, how can you not call this a cover-up or a lie? Can somebody in the comments who's a Dem explain to me how this was not a cover-up or a lie? Because now it seems like the Dems knew this and they let it ride.
Yeah. I'll tell you this much. If the Dems are willing to lie about this and cover it up, and I have yet to see anyone that's not trying to push a book come out here and say that, the Democrats or want to hold them accountable. I have yet to see anyone do that. But this is the thing. How can you even trust this party ever again? How can you say, like, even with Kamala, because Kamala says she didn't see any issues. Remember, she said she would never change anything. She would never change any of Joe Biden's policies when she went on The View. So if she says she didn't see any cognitive decline or any medical concerns, how can she be trusted? Like, I got way more questions, and the Democrats don't want to have that conversation. So when it comes to like some type of finding middle ground on some type of bill or finding some type of disagreement, I don't know why you would even listen to the Democrats. This is what they would go through to lie. They would lie that the president has cancer, or they would withhold the information that there's some medical issues with the president or cognitive issues, just so they can beat Trump. So I don't know if I could ever trust any of them. And so it'll be interesting come 2028, because we already know who's going to be ready for 2028 on the conservatives, on the Republican side. But on the Democrat side, I mean, that still remains to be said. So again, remember, this is, if they're willing to do this, to go through the lie for this, what else what else are they willing to do just to win?
Well, for saying this, but I think it's going to be Mark Cuban. Just mark that down. I'm gonna check back on that in about 3.5 years and see if I was right. But I think it's gonna be either Mark Cuban, and believe it or not, Stephen A. Smith is preparing for something political. I don't know what, but he's preparing for something. I know he is
Hey.
because he's doing too many strategic conversations on political networks and bringing in these political people to interview. He's planning something. Don't know what yet though.
So you know what's funny, real quick, and we got one more thing to discuss. Stephen A. Smith, I believe he's trying to be the next Joe Rogan, and I think a lot of people feel comfortable going on Stephen A. Smith's podcast than they do going on Joe Rogan. And the funny thing is, Joe Rogan is actually a liberal, so it's not like he's conservative. He's a liberal, and he was on the liberal side for a long time. I mean, it was only until after this election is where he probably still is a liberal, but he couldn't. There's no way he could vote for Kamala. Like, it just was not going to be an option for him. So yeah, there's 2020 is going to be very, very interesting. My bet is it's going to probably be AOC or Jasmine Crockett